mobility, challenges and opportunities. But before proceeding further, let me give a brief introduction on what we do and who we are. Karishma, can we do the slide?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So today's topic is basically on future of mobility, challenges and opportunities. Karishma, can you proceed to next? Can you go to the next slide?
Yes, sir.
We are basically a not-for-profit organization with 7 industry bodies. And these associations are ELSINA, ELCOMA. Karishma, your slide, please. It is. Sorry, just 2 minutes.
Piyush, I think Karishma is facing some issues with her laptop. Let me fire up the presentation.
Yeah, just 2 minutes, please. It is going to start again. Yeah, basically, we are a not-for-profit organization, and we are led by 7 industry associations like ELSINA, MATE, IESA, SIAMA, LEDMA, IPSA, IPCA, and ELCOMA. We have developed around 160 plus qualification packs with 10 subsectors in electronics. Here we have written 9. It is a little dated. We have recently added the instrumentation sector also onto this. So altogether we have 7 subsectors in electronics. And the industries we work with are, the industry partners are Tech Mahindra, Schneider, Videocon, Dish TV, Eureka Foods, Havells, Whirlpool, Voltas, Godrej, and so on. And plus we have tied up with knowledge partners like IEEE, SCT, which is Society for Cable Telecommunication Engineers, then UKD, then ITRI, then IIIT, and ARM, and Infineon. ESSC as such is a standards body for outcome-based skill development. All these NSQF courses are basically meant for outcome-based skill development only. We are also apex body for assessment and certification. We have a mandate to build capacity for the ESDM ecosystem. Here again, it is 9, but actually it is now 10 industry subsectors in electronics. We have 160 plus qualification packs. We are doing Center of Excellences and model training centers. We do demand aggregation with the industries to facilitate national and international placements. We are accreditation and affiliation body also. We are doing micro-entrepreneurship, CSR and livelihood project. I'll just give you a small example on micro-entrepreneurship project. We have recently done with the tribal people in Karel with L&T Foundation. We empanel industry as knowledge partners. We do electronic product design, ODM linkages, and we are also joint apprenticeship advisor to the Government of India in the NAPS project. NAPS is National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. Can you go to the next slide, please? Can you go to the next slide, please? Sorry, I think it is getting a hang again. Just 2 minutes.
Sir, are you able to see?
Yeah, now we are able to see. Please continue, Yuji.
Yes, please. These are basically it is shown as 9 subsectors, but another, as I told you, that the 10th subsector is the instrumentation one. The first one is semiconductor and components. The second is the industrial automation. The third is, which we are discussing today, which is the e-mobility. The fourth one is EMS. The fifth one is PCB design and manufacturing. And then consumer electronics and IT hardware, communication and broadcasting, security and surveillance, solar and LED, and the last is the instrumentation part. Karishma, can you go to the next? These are we are basically present like this. We have trained more than 12 lakh candidates. We have placed around 50% of them with a qualification pack of 161. We have 200 plus subject matter experts. We have 250 training partners with 4,000 plus training centers all across India. We have 7,011 certified trainers. We have 3,271 certified assessors. We have 5 transnational QPs and 13 Center of Excellences. These are basically industry engagement and the services offered. With industry, we have National Occupation Standard Committee. We do skill gap analysis. We also do occupational map development. We work on qualification pack with the industries. We derive the content also. We have subject matter experts from industries, and we do training of trainers and assessors with industry. And the services what we get is the short-term training, the bridge course, the model training center. The model training center is basically, it is different from the normal training center because this is done by industry only at their premises. We do apprenticeship training with industry. We have campus engagement also, that also backed by industry. And we have got a job portal for demand aggregation. Now let's talk a little about the mobility sector. Mobility sector, the way it is growing, and COVID has basically redefined the new normal in the mobility sector. If we talk about the data from IBF, India is ranked 4th largest auto market in the world. And we are very strong in two-wheeler market. If we see the data, 1.5 lakh two-wheeler electric vehicle already sold and huge scope to grow as total 21 lakh two-wheelers sold last year in India. New paradigms like charging stations, swappable battery station, manufacturing technician, service technician, there's tremendous scope for scaling in this sector. We have already 7 to 8 qualification packs ready, and we are working on some more. And hopefully we will be working on a couple of more with the industry members. And before going on for the next, Karishma, the next one, please. Before going on to the next one, please, let me have the privilege to introduce Dr. Kamal Kishore Vora. He is our keynote speaker today. Dr. Vora has done his bachelor's in mechanical engineering, master's in automobile engineering, and then PhD from IIT Bombay. He has a vast industrial and academic experience of 35 years and has been associated with Walchand Nagar Industries, Emitech Emission Controls, Mahindra & Mahindra, and ARAI. He has specialized in the field of education and technology development, soft skill, engine and emission controls, and electric mobility. He is instrumental in starting ARAI Academy, which conducts BTech, MTech, and PhD courses in automotive engineering in collaboration with various universities. Presently, Dr. Vora is Senior Deputy Director and Head ARAI Academy. He is the recipient of Best Learning Center Award 2011 for ARAI Academy and Knowledge Center from Indian Society for Training and Development at Pune. In 2014, he received Guru Awards from Sai India Foundation at New Delhi for his contribution to the students of India. He also received Quality Excellence Award for Teaching and Learning Practices in February 2016 and Lifetime Achievement Award by the Open International University, Sri Lanka in September 2006. He was the Secretary and Vice President of the Society of Automotive Engineers and conducts series of conferences and seminars, workshops, courses, and various student activities like AWIM and Baja Sai India. He is now the Managing Committee member of Sai India, member of SAE International Engineering Meeting Boards in USA, member of Congress Boards of FICITA in UK and Sai India of Highway Board. He was convener of SIAT 2015 and also the technical chair of SIAT 2017, FICITA 2018 and SIAT 2019. Recently, he is nominated as chairman of ASDC Expert Group on Electric Vehicles and has taken up a big task of EV awareness across the country. Dr. Vora has 2 patents, 3 books, 2 reports, and 32 international papers and 65 national papers to his credit. Here to Dr. K.C. Vora. Dr. Vora, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chakravarti. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Am I audible and are you able to see the slide?
Yes, sir. Yes, Vora, please.
Yes, we are able to see.
Right. So today I'm going to speak on future of mobility in India, challenges and opportunities. I have around 26 slides and I'll try to finish it in 15 minutes. Before I talk about the future and the challenges and opportunity, I would like to talk about mobility industry in India. I must talk about automotive. Automotive industry is a big industry in India, which caters to 8% of GDP. And if you see that automotive industry with the help of SIAM and Ministry of Industry and Public Enterprise came out with a document called Automotive Mission Plan 2006 to 2016. It was a 10-year plan and we stood 11th in passenger vehicle production and our target was to be 7th largest passenger vehicle in the next 10 years by 2016. And we have very high aim of contributing the GDP to 10%, increasing our revenue 4 times and export 9 times. You'll be surprised to know that instead of 7th, we were 6th largest in 2016. We surpassed our target there. But in terms of GDP, we are around 8%. We were not able to reach 10%. And yes, we did a very good human resource development, and we were able to add 25 billion people jobs. Now let us see the next 10 year, which is from 2016 to 2026. That document is also ready. If you Google, you'll get both the documents. Here there are three magic numbers: 3, 12, and 65. We aim to become the third largest vehicle manufacturer in the world. Today, we are already fourth largest passenger vehicle manufacturer in the world. And after US and China, we would be the third by 2026. Also, we have become the largest manufacturer of two-wheel from last year, and also the largest manufacturer of tractor in the world. Our GDP target is 12% in the next by 2026, and an additional employment to 65 million people in the next 10 years. Yes, automobile is good for mobility, but it has to be sustained. And this mobility comes out with a lot of issues like congestion, unsafe roads, pollution, oil import bill, high accident death rate. So we need to find solutions to this challenge as an engineer. And also there are other things like growing economy, increasing consumerism, and digital exposure. These are the opportunities which are available in the Asian countries, and hence mobility has gone through a transformation. So we are slowly shifting towards new technology. Most of the people who have a vehicle at their home, whether it's two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, we use only 5% utilization. The rest of the time it is lying in our car parking or office or college parking. Hence, slowly we are moving towards shared mobility, and the last mile connectivity is being worked out, whether we use Ola, Uber, Zoom, or Metro, or BRT, or buses. Today we are talking about four major concepts of mobility: ACES, autonomous, connected, electric, and shared. I talked to you about the shared mobility. The today's millennium don't want to buy flat; they want a rented flat, rented furniture, they want rented cars. But also with new advancement in technology, we are talking about autonomous vehicle, driverless cars, connected vehicle, where one vehicle talks to other and there are no accidents, or we cross the toll naka without stopping and our toll tax get detected, and so on. But of all these four, electric vehicle is emerging as a very clear technology solution. Instead of writing ACES, we can also talk about affordable solution, connected and shared, environmental friendly, and safer mobility. So in future, we will still call it as ACES, but A stands for affordable solution, C stands for connected and shared mobility, E stands for environmental friendly and energy security, and S stands for safer mobility. So these are the four important aspects of today's concept. So when I talk about connected vehicles, we are talking about vehicles which can talk to each other so that the accidents are minimum, or we are talking about vehicles which can communicate through the infrastructure, and this is an in thing which is going to happen. The next step to this would be the autonomous vehicle, and there are different levels of autonomous. So right now we are talking just giving comfort to the driver, so the driver can look at the mobile, driver can sleep for a while, but a time would come then the driver will not be required at all, and the interior seating mechanism will be totally different, maybe in a circular shape where people can sit and talk to them and do not concentrate the driver. Yeah, this is one technology. We don't know whether it will be really important in India or not, but the time will decide. So artificial intelligence is here to stay, and machine learning, artificial intelligence, all this will become very, very important aspects, not only in mobility sector, but in all the sectors. Looking at the prevailing conditions of crude petroleum prices going up, more and more people shifting towards the city, and our whatever we are doing, how it affects Mother Earth and the environment, and how government can come out with strong policy are very, very important aspects which we must understand. For example, Indian government is very strong supporter of electric mobility, and various schemes adopted by Indian government like National Mission Mobility Plan, electric vehicle policy, FAME, These are very, very important policy, and our Niti Aayog has been working very hard to ensure that electric vehicle penetration is 30% by the year 2030. So when we talk about well-to-wheel emission in terms of carbon dioxide, you will see that as we shift from diesel and gasoline technology to electric vehicle technology, our CO2 emissions are going to be 1/3, same with NOx. But if we use renewable sources like solar and wind energy, there will be zero CO2, zero NOx, and zero particulates. So initiatives like FAME, where we are giving stress on technology development, demand creation, pilot projects, and charging infrastructure. And we have a target of 2,000 public charging stations across the country. And government has already procured 10,000 vehicles from Tata and Mahindra. I think it is going a big boost towards electric mobility. 10,000 crore rupees are kept aside for the next 3 years, 2019 to 2022, for various initiatives. And if one buys a wheeler, he gets a subsidy of around 20,000. If one buys a bus, electric bus, then he gets a subsidy of SIS 50 lakh. So that is what is the incentive to electric mobility. As far as standards are concerned, we have been working since 1999, so almost 22 years, where the first committee was formed to decide how electric vehicles should be tested and certified. Today, we have full-fledged all the standards, automotive industry standards, whether it is for electric vehicle, hybrid electric vehicle, charging stations, or AIS, automotive industry standard 123 for retrofit kit. That means all old diesels and petrol engines could be removed and an EV kit can be fit. India is the only country which has a retrofit kit standard and the only country which allows battery swapping. So that's a very good proactive sign. At ARAI, Automotive Research Institute of India, we have an ARAI Center of Excellence on Green Mobility, where we have all the facilities required to do research and development of electric vehicle, testing and certification of electric vehicle, and skill development of electric vehicle. So there are a lot of research going on, and this research are nothing but opportunities which we need to harness to take forward the latest technology in the field of electric mobility. There is a need, strong need for skill development, and these disruptive technologies like electric vehicle and hybrid vehicle are driving the need to bridge the gap in workforce competency. I myself is an expert in engine and emission, but reskilling myself in the area of electric mobility. ASDC and automotive skill sector has been working very hard to come up with various QPs, and this qualification packs will make all the participants more employable in future. So a lot of market research has been done to show that how reskilling will become the preferred strategy. So instead of removing people, we can reskill them. Big companies for manufacturing only engines have taken big decision to reskill their entire manpower so that they need not only work on engine, but they can also work on motor. So that is what is going to happen, and building would be one of the top priority after we are able to meet the technology demand. At SA India, we have introduced eBaha, an electric vehicle driven competition. We started this in 2015 under the blessing of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Today, more than 50 colleges participate and make 50 electric eBaha vehicles, which runs at Pithampur near Indore. This is one step that we will be able to meet 30% electric vehicle penetration by 2030 and 100% electric vehicle penetration by 2047. We have been doing with DHI, Department of Heavy Industry and Public Enterprise, Ministry of Heavy Industry and Public Enterprise, series of electric vehicle awareness program. Any engineering college can come forward and we can do half a day training program and half a day lectures and half a day demonstration of electric two-wheeler, three-wheeler, and four-wheeler. We have also started courses like postgraduate diploma in electric mobility or postgraduate diploma in electric and autonomous vehicle 1-year course. And we also have 2-year course in Masters of Technology in Power Engineering and Electric Hybrid Vehicle. So these courses, besides this course, we have a lot of programs which we will be doing. And we have around 10 QPs. So these are the 10 QPs, like electric vehicle product design, electric vehicle test engineer, technician, quality control, assembly operator, drivers. So 10 QPs are already ready for launch, and from July 2021, all the training programs are going to join. Specifically, the electric vehicle test engineer and electric vehicle design engineer are the two important qualification packs which ARI will spearhead from June 2021. A lot of training programs are being invited. So with this, I complete my keynote address. I really appreciate what ESSCI is doing with NSDC and Skill India. And let's all work together and work towards electric mobility and the skill development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Voraji.
Thank you, Voraji.
So if there are no questions, we can go to the next agenda.
So I think we should move to our next session. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Devraj Singh from Electronic Sector Skill Council of India, and I am with you all with many respected industry leaders in our panel today. You know, today's panel discussion theme is adoption of actually electric vehicles in India has the potential to disrupt the automotive market. So on this theme, we have a very great panel here, and I'll be introducing everyone on the panel, and will be actually making you listen what they have to say on this particular theme. So global automotive industry is undergoing significant disruptions across the value chain. One such disruption that is expected to have a significant effect on stakeholders across the mobility ecosystem is the electrification of powertrain. So looking into the future of mobility, there now stands a chance to develop a transportation system which can facilitate thriving and vibrant communities in our cities and towns. Future mobility is about striving towards environment-friendly, integrated, automated, and personalized travel on demand, what Dr. K.C. Vora has already covered. Given the disruptions, OEMs and automobile component manufacturers need to necessarily consider looking towards new offerings to deliver desired returns. This may mean moving away from today's linear supply chain and collaborating with multiple players, having different skill sets across a web of relationship to have future ready assets and capabilities. With above now, I'm opening the panel discussion regarding the future of mobility in India, the challenges and the opportunities that lies there. So my first panelist is Mr. Sanjay Gupta, and he is Vice President and India Country Manager at NXP India Private Limited, having spearheading 4 diverse R&D functions in Noida, Bangalore, Pune, and Hyderabad, comprising more than 2,500 high-tech engineers and representing all NXP product lines. He holds multiple US patents and numerous technical publications, and leads the organization's business in India while ensuring local compliance with both government and corporate programs and policies. He is also a chairperson of NXP India Board of Directors for all country decisions. So I welcome our esteemed panelist, Mr. Sanjay Gupta, on board. Yeah, Mr. Sanjay.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, Sanjay ji, please.
Okay, great. So I just want to know the flow. So shall I start? My views, or I have to wait for all the introductions?
You had to open with your opening.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. So thanks everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of NXP Semiconductors. And the topic that is chosen today, the future for mobility in India, especially focusing around EV, with challenges and opportunities. It's a very relevant topic, very close to our heart as NXP, and very close to national objectives and the goal that Honorable Prime Minister has put up for the growth of the country. And I truly take that in the stride for Make in India and Design in India, because truly speaking, that single theme is opening up a big disruption in the entire automotive ecosystem, be it a design companies like us, or be it a manufacturing tier 1 or OEMs, or the entire ecosystem with the skilling universities and the service providers. This one key thing of seamless mobility touches everyone. So I would like to share my views from a technology standpoint. NXP being among the top companies providing the embedded semiconductors and electronics, we have a very important focus area on automotive, and needless to say, electric vehicles is a key trend that is taking the entire world. India is no exception. Certainly, we are trying to catch up, with the role models like Norway on one side, China on the other side, and US, and then followed by Asia, with India's focus towards that. But I think everyone has their own time. Everyone is on their own treadmill to catch up a trend, and when you really reach a point of inflection, and all the key data being shared by our esteemed panelist earlier through the keynote was very very significant, that in a time-bound manner, whether we have next 5 years, next 10 years, and next 20 years, there's a clear objective in front of us. From my side, I will say that anyone who is focusing around how technology is going to make it happen, there's a big opportunity for everyone, whether you are a startup company or whether you are an established company. EV dream is not going to be possible without a full-fledged electronic sector focusing on battery management system, focusing on AC to DC converters, focusing on DC to DC converters, traction motors, inverters. All of them are going to make the heart of this EV. And not only a standalone car electronics, this has to be a connected car. This has to be a car which has the intelligence to sense when my battery is depleting in case of hybrid vehicles. When is the next opportunity for me to switch gears between a traditional petrol or a diesel into my electric powertrain? It will have the capability to sense and predict when is my next charging station using the connected technology, telematics and GPS, for example, so that I can navigate accordingly using a balance of petrol or electric, or in future, if there's a fully electric vehicle, what kind of electronic, what kind of internal infotainment, air conditioning can be sustained until I reach my next destination for charging. So it will be an intelligent car. It will have all the capability of sense, think, connect, and act, as we say in our language, which depicts the entire chain of command, where sensing means you have the right sensors to predict battery, to predict the entire surroundings around you. You have the thinking capability, so that you have the AI-based technology. You have the connected capability using the latest, whether it is a short-range communication using Bluetooth or NFC, or you have a long-range communication using 5G or the Wi-Fi in a car, and finally act accordingly within the most efficient way. So this whole sense, think, connect, act is our technology theme, on which NXP is developing all these cool solutions for future. And we will love to collaborate with our ecosystem partners, as well as our young talent in the country, who is going to be the main, force behind developing these technologies, which are centered around India needs. Because not necessarily we can copy everything from West and make it here. It has to be taking from Indian conditions, Indian infrastructure. So I think future is very bright. It is the biggest disruption in automotive world for next 1 to 2 decades. I'm very excited and looking forward to contribute in that space. I'll pause here and probably wait for the next subsequent rounds to share more insights deeper into EV. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjay. You rightly said about various themes that is coming from the government, like Vocal for Local, Atmanirbhar Bharat. So all these things will definitely do pretty well in longer term. And NXP, we see it as a semiconductor leader, one of the semiconductor leader. So of course, we will definitely gain through whatever advancement which actually comes by. So now I'm moving to our next panelist. Our next panelist is Mr. Kaustubhan Srivatsan, who is Vice President Engineering at Ola Electric Mobility, having over 37 years of industry experience with top auto manufacturers. He likes taking up new challenges and solving technical problems, and have shouldered responsibilities in leadership roles. Above all, he ensured integrity in product engineering and quality, leading to a higher level of customer satisfaction. He also contributed to building a great place to work culture that encouraged employees to achieve excellence with energy and enthusiasm, which is very important aspect when you are sitting at top position. So, Mr. Kaustubhan, stage is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Devraj. It's a great opportunity. And what I will do is I will share some PowerPoints so that it will be easier for the participants to go through that. Are you able to see?
Yes.
So Ola Electric has taken a big lead in this field, and we are coming up with a scooter, which Ola Electric acquired a company in Netherlands. I won't spend too much time marketing Ola Electric here, but just to let you know that yes, we are working on the electrifying India. So this is the factory that we plan to set up in Chennai. All the groundwork is already done, and as announced in the public, this will be the world's largest factory for two-wheelers with a capacity of 10 million vehicles per annum. It's on a 500 acres of land, very large. And the most important thing from a FAME 2 point of view is we are aiming for a 90% localization. And as Niti Aayog said yesterday, 80% of the vehicle sales in India are two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So it's very important to electrify this large mass of vehicles first. Now, the plant that we are setting up, like you mentioned before, it has to be ultra modern. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. We have to be the best in the world. So we are planning a very robotic plant, as you can see on the left-hand side, frame welding. And on the right-hand side, it will be on the lines of Industry 4.0 to have the best quality, best productivity, and best customization for the scooters and any other product that we do in the future. Now I'll come to ESSEI. Your concept note that you sent across mentioned the following points. So this is only for the benefit of participants who may be a little new to EVs and it's not meant for the expert audience. So we can take some of these points later, but I will go through this very quickly. What is the emphasis on commercial vehicles, which you mentioned, technology trends in vehicles, battery cells, cost angle, charging stations, and sustainability. I'll just run through. There are about 20 slides here. So I just referred to a study by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the US, talking of commercial vehicles, which is a very, very bright area for investing in EVs. So if you see the battery capacity, and I'm now going to start technical discussion. So battery capacity ranges something like a 350 kilowatt hour for this kind of a bus. Whereas for a scooter, we will use, let's say, 4 kilowatt hour. So roughly you can say it's 90 times or 100 times the battery capacity of a scooter. So with this kind of battery capacities, and if you see more trucks and where really we need to save the emissions, these are all large trucks and are different. They are class 8 trucks, very heavy trucks. You can see the battery capacity, for example, going up to 550 kilowatt hour. And the range also you can see here in the last column, it says 250 miles. This is miles. So the kilometers, of course, will be, let's say, 400 kilometers. So this is the kind of technology which people are aiming for the EVs. So EV trucks and buses is a very bright area. Now, if we look at the engineering aspect of that, which will be more of interest for the participants, let's look at a couple of graphs. So the National Renewable Energy Laboratory has analyzed these. So there are 3 graphs over here. So on the y-axis is the battery energy, which you saw for various trucks. And on the x-axis, you see the range in miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles, and so on. And these different slopes are for different classes of vehicle. So making this whole thing simple, what this shows is that for a very heavy class of vehicle, as the weight increases, because it's a very heavy class of vehicle, slope 1, much more energy is required to make it achieve a particular range. And as the vehicle becomes lighter, the green slope and the gray dotted line, you need much lower battery energy to make it go for a particular range. It looks obvious, but it's something to be noted. Further, if you see the energy used per kilometer, it's like a fuel efficiency. So we know that for cars, IC engines, we say 20 kilometers per liter, something like that. And here you say kilowatt hour per mile or kilowatt hour per kilometer, equivalent fuel efficiency. So we call it as energy efficiency. That's also fine. And this, if you study that, you can see that the energy efficiency, energy use rather, is very low here for a low weight of vehicle. And as you go to a weight class of 8, as the vehicle becomes heavier and heavier, like these big buses, you can see that they are consuming, of course, they are less fuel efficient. That is consuming more fuel, that is more energy. Maybe it's obvious. We can also correlate it with what we know from the IC engines. Therefore, to make it very simple, the trend, the technology trend is, of course, to maximize range, because range fear, or the fear of the juice running out, has been a major factor for people to resist buying EVs. What if it stops in the middle of the road? Where do I go? And so on. So all vehicles today are aiming for more than 300 kilometers range. Under the limitation, and limitations are very important. The limitation is size of the vehicle, shape of the vehicle, and driving and loading conditions. So people want to put AC, like our delegate mentioned, and loading conditions, loading in India, and so on. So very simply put, and not getting into a complex engineering discussion, to maximize the energy efficiency is our goal in India. So we must maximize energy density of the battery, and this could be a function of battery, cell chemistry, and keeping in mind the safety, and minimize losses. And here is where the electronic skilling becomes very key. And we need to skill up the people in electronics and control systems. So we are, everybody has a challenge in this control systems. They can range from very simple to very complex algorithms and logic that are used. This both for motor controller, battery management systems, and various control units which have come into the scooters and cars. BSCM is a body control module. And so minimize losses is the philosophy in general, battery and in motor. And in terms of vehicle also, people are working on minimizing the losses like rolling resistance. And this could be aerodynamics, this could be weight of the car and so on, and minimizing the length of the wiring harness throughout the vehicle. A lot of people are working in the world to minimize the weight of the vehicle. And of course, this is very, very critical. The lesser the weight, longer the range. And so the lightweighting technologies are being talked about today, and we need some special skilling of people for this as well, how to work with aluminum bodies and so on. And while working with all these aluminum bodies and lightweighting, it should also meet the safety and crash requirements. Cars today have to meet global NCAP, get the 5-star rating and so on, otherwise customers will not buy it. Okay, and battery technologies we'll discuss further in the discussion after other delegates have spoken, but in short, there are 4 major battery cell technologies: the NMC series, NMCA, which General Motors will introduce in 2022, NCA, and LFP. So everything is there on this slide, you can see. So NMC is what most companies are using today in the car world, and the energy density is around 185, 200. But the goal, worldwide goal, is to make it 400 or 500 watt-hour per kg. Only then you can have a more compact battery. More compact battery you have, lesser the weight of the vehicle. So all this weight, energy density, all these things are related to each other. And for buses, of course, since Devraj had given an emphasis on commercial vehicles, buses in China mostly use LFP technology. It's cheaper, lower energy density, but you don't need that kind of a range because buses can be charged as they go to the next bus stop or maybe next to next bus stop. So LFP is a low-cost technology which could be appropriate for India to adopt for the buses and commercial vehicles. So everywhere there is no single path. We have to select what is good for us and what's really suitable for our country. Now, if you go very deep into the chemistry and battery chemistry, people are getting rid of cobalt because cobalt is made in mines in countries where human rights are not being followed. There are human rights violations. So there are a lot of countries, even including China, have mandated that cobalt-free battery only should be used in the vehicles. China has mandated that. So Tesla is working on substituting cobalt by silicon. We'll come back to this later. And how to substitute it by silicon is, of course, a challenge. It's not so easy. There are a lot of molecular methods to substitute cobalt by silicon. But yes, the direction in the world is to have cobalt-free cells in the battery. And there's one more thing which people are doing to increase the size, diameter of the cell itself from 21 millimeters to 46 millimeters. Therefore, fatter cells are coming into vogue. Tesla is a great proponent of this cylindrical cell. Now, not only chemistry, I also wanted to mention about the mechanical construction. So this is a kind of thing where people have only one tabs in the rolls, which they make for cylindrical cells, but the world is moving towards multiple tabs and then towards continuous tab, no tab at all, a continuous tab to reduce the internal resistance. So this is at the level of the mechanical construction of the cell. Finally, it comes to cost. And the world is moving towards a target of $100 per kilowatt hour. We are not there yet. And the moment we achieve this, we will be closer to the cost of a ICE vehicle. And by 2025, there is the expectancy that this cost will come down further to $75 per kilowatt hour. And this will happen by not only by chemistry, but by other mechanical things that I showed, mechanical construction. Overall, how will people buy more EVs? They will buy EVs if the initial purchase price is same as that of an internal combustion vehicle. So if you're buying a WagonR, but if you want an electric version of WagonR, if both of them cost the same, then you are more inclined to buy EV because the running cost is going to be less. But today's situation is that on the left-hand side, if you see the ICE cost roughly, the EV cost is much higher than that. Sometimes it's even 70 to 80% more due to battery cost and all the cost of the electronics and everything. And then government is helping with the subsidy. We have the FAME 2, we have the Delhi government policy, for example, straight 1.5 lakh subsidy. So this price minus subsidy, and you get what is called the net price to the customer. So yes, it is definitely good, but you can still see that the green graph is higher than this red graph. So still EVs are costly to buy. If you take examples like the Indian vehicles that are available in India. So the tomorrow's target, which every OEM is working towards, is to make this yellow graph exactly same as the equivalent ICE cost. So there'll be no objection to customers or resistance to buy this EV. Now, if you come to charging, yes, it's a very big challenge. If I buy the car, what do I do with it? I cannot be stranded on the road. So if you see China, they invested a huge amount of money and they have, it's not a plan, it's already implemented. They have got so many 566,000 charging stations already working. So they have already implemented that. In India also, there are moves, but if you see, we are not near China. We have to catch up with them. There are talks about 2,600 in 62 cities, 1,700, 69,000 petrol stations has been directed by the government to have one EV charger at least. But you can imagine the large queue that will be formed in each petrol station if 100 cars are queuing up in order to get charged. And charging time is going to be at least 15 to 20 minutes, even for a fast charger. So that much patience people don't have, and you cannot have mile-long queues in Indian conditions. So the estimate by all the McKinseys and others are that if you want to make EVs succeed in India, India will need 5 million charging points by 2030. Of course, on the right-hand side of this gray line, there are others. Private industry is also ramping up. Tata Power, they are saying hundreds of chargers. All that data can be discussed subsequently. And of course, very important thing is rate. How much will I? So if you see this is cheaper than petrol. So China has got different categories of rates. So if you take the normal period at, let's say, peak period, it's about 5 rupees per kilowatt hour. And 5 rupees per kilowatt hour is supposed to be really cheap, because if you have a car of 30 kilowatt hour, it's about 150 rupees. 150 rupees to charge your, let's say, Nissan Leaf or a car of that size. Whereas if you fill it with petrol, today, petrol being 100 rupees per liter and a 45 liter tank, 100 into 45 liters is going to be 4,500 rupees. So definitely this kind of a rate is very cheap in China for charging rate. So last and I will go faster is about sustainability, because the others have to speak after me. So one of the sustainability measures is the well. Well means the oil well, or wherever the power is produced, to the wheel of the vehicle. It could be wheel of scooter or wheel of car. How much is the greenhouse gas emissions? And this is the data from IEA research. So if you look at the left-hand side graph, there's a zero line here. So zero means absolutely zero carbon dioxide emissions, CO2 emissions. And on the y-axis, you have the million tons of CO2. On the positive side, and on the negative side, you have the ones which are created. So if you have electric vehicles, those are above the zero line, and they create, let's say they are creating only 200 million tons of CO2. They have saved the creation of 400 million tons of CO2 if people had bought only ICE vehicles. So this is called the avoidance of greenhouse gas emission by people buying IC engine vehicles. So there is definitely a 150% gain if people buy EVs. And this gray circle in the middle of this graph is the net avoided CO2 emissions for the whole Earth as a planet. And you can see this is minus 200. So it's 200 tons of million tons of CO2 has been avoided. On the right-hand side graph is the same thing, except that if you have very green sources of power, like renewable energy, solar power, hydel power, which is not a coal-fired plant, then you have much higher avoiding of CO2 emissions for the planet, therefore better sustainability. That's all from my side. Thank you very much, Mr. Devraj. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. A lot of technical loading from your side. And to everyone who has seen this presentation and want to revisit this presentation, this complete webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. You can write ESSAI YouTube channel. There that webinar will show up after a day, and that you can revisit whenever required. So now coming to our next panelist is Mr. Amit Goel, who is a seasoned professional at Tata Motors and heads customer care department for EVBU division. He has a rich experience of more than 22 years in automobile sector. And since 2003, he is associated with Tata Motors and have exposure of working in various functions within Tata Motors, like enhancing service network, area service manager, handling skill development initiatives and all that. So I would invite Mr. Amit Goel to say something for the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Devraj. Am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, and thanks for this opportunity to interact with the large audience on the subject we are here today. And just to start about ourselves, if I will say, as a Tata Group of company, we are engaging with the government or with the government policies for vocal for local and Atmanirbhar Bharat, and not as a Tata Motors only, but as a Tata Group of companies. And in this EV scenario where now we are looking for this opportunity that how we can control the air pollution within the India, and we can contribute the in nation growth. We as a Tata Group of company comes together to give a solutions for all the aspect on EV mobility, whether it may be Tata Power, who is trying to set up the charging infrastructure within India. Then Tata Chemicals is there, who are working on the battery chemistry and battery technology, and Tata Auto Component System Limited, TACO, who are helping us to localize the key EV component for India. Then on software side, we will say that Tata Consultancy Service is one of the key companies in Tata Group, which are working on fleet management app solution or connecting app solutions, which is required for a EV vehicle or EV mobility. And since in India, if you will say, however, the percentage wise of this fleet segment will be approximately 7 to 8% of total population. But even then, since the kilometer coverage is very high by those fleet segment, and they are the major contributor in the controlling this air pollution by using the EV technology. And for that, we are trying to emphasize on that segment a lot. Then since in EV part, like Kaustubhanji said, that cost is a major component, and there is a initial high cost in purchasing of the EV vehicle even after the subsidy also. To resolve or to sort out those issues, our group company Tata Capitals, Tata AIG, they are coming up with the financing options, with the insurance options for electric vehicles. So these are the few of, I will say, our efforts toward the nation for e-mobility solution in India. Then I would like to share that part also, that why there is a need of this EV adoptions in India. If you will see that globally, if you will see, there are some key mega trends, like climate change is one of them, where globally we have targeted that the temperature should not rise more than 2 degrees Celsius. And if you will see in this particular climate or temperature part, automotive sector contribute approximately 15% of global emissions. Similarly, volatility in crude price is the another factor where we are focusing. If you see, US, China, and India, they are countries combining together. They are consuming approximately 40% of world oil consumption. In these three countries, we are using that. And you know that oil deficient countries to explore alternate green fuels also to counter the financial pressures due to cyclic nature of crude oil prices. So these are the few trends. Other than that, there are another trends like new technology. Like Sanjay ji was saying, that technology has to be improved. Now there is a time where we have to have those vehicles which can be driven without the drivers, which can have intelligence, artificial intelligence, and to avoid the accidents. Okay, so those kind of technology evolution is there, and in that particular front, if you will see, the battery technology is one major component in EV vehicle, where we have seen the drastic evolution of the technology, and due to which even the price of the battery get reduced in last 10 years. If you will see, the price have been reduced by around 80%. In 2010, the price of per kilowatt hour was approximately $1,100 US, which is nowadays is coming around 120, 125 US. So there is a drastic reduction in those particular pricing. So these are few things which have been initiated, due to which we are going forward with EV mobility in India. Okay. In India, if you will see, particularly for India, if you will see that out of 10 major cities, most polluted cities in world, out of 10, 9 are in India. Okay, and every years approximately 1.6 millions deaths are occurring due to air pollution. And if we will continue with this ratio, it is expected that by 2015, this will be increased up to 3.6 million per year. So there is a definitely huge demand of change in the mobility, green mobility in India as on date. And our government of India have contributed or have taken those initiatives very fast in last, I will say, 7 years or 8 years. They have taken those initiatives. They have given the subsidies which are helping us to move ahead. These subsidies are not being given only to the customer, but to the OEM also. Okay. They have given the subsidy even to set up the plants. They have given the subsidy to set up the charging infrastructure across India. So these are the initiatives government is taking, and we are hopeful that by with this speed, we have started this evolution in 2018-2019 in India, and this year we are hoping that the percentage wise it will be approximately 1% of the total population of the vehicles. We will be go for the electrifications, and it is expected that by 2025 we will be at around 12 to 13% of population with electric vehicle, which will be a major impact on the environment. So this is from my side, and right now there are some issues, or I will say there are some roadblocks in Indian conditions due to the mindset of the customer, due to some anxiety like range anxiety is there, reliability anxiety is there, how being a new technology, how much this vehicle will be reliable. Those are few hurdles which we are trying, and everyone is trying to come up and to make the customer aware about the technology, about the providing the confidence in terms of setting the infrastructure, in terms of enhancing the range of the product. So we are doing continuously, we are working on that. And if you will see, we have launched our first product with a ARI certified range of 140. But within a span of 2 years, we have introduced another product with a ARI certified range of 300, more than 300 kilometers. So in that way, every company is working in that way, whether it is Mahindra, whether it is MG, every company is moving in that directions to provide more and more solution to the Indian customer as per their need, so that they can be confident, they can have the variety, and then they can move ahead with this revolution in India. That is from my side. Over to you, Devraji. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit sir. So on this series, our next panelist is Mr. B. Sridhar. B. Sridhar, who heads training and OD at Mahindra and Mahindra Limited. He has over 25 years on shop floor responsibility of production, quality and I, and currently working for skill development and training center development. He has exposure to national and international skill competition in painting, welding, electrical, mechatronics, especially at world skills. So I invite Mr. B. Sridhar to say something on this topic.
Thank you very much, Devraj. Thanks to VSSI giving me this opportunity. I'll be speaking more on the subject of people development. So a lot of, shall I share my PPT?
Yeah, you can.
1 minute. Once again, coming to the electric mobility, what is the actual, how it influencing our country to take it forward? And many earlier speakers have already spoken about the use of renewable energy. And of course, KC Vora has already given a lot of inputs on various policies that is already put in place to reduce the carbon footprint. And a lot of technology development that is being taking place across all the industries, and ARI supporting to this. Now, what will be the key objectives? What everybody has already spoken, that is how we can reduce the oil consumption and reduce our oil imports and reduce the pollution, and how it can improve the employment. Now, let us see how actually the development has taken place. The development in lithium-ion batteries has taken to such an extent. Today, as Mr. Kaustuban has already spoken, we are targeting more on how more of energy at a less cost we can manufacture a lithium-ion battery. Now, in 1980, how it started, and today where we are, and how we have developed to that extent. Of course, we should be grateful to the Western where we have got the technologies. And this, today what people are asking is how we can get a life of 10 years of battery life cycle, 10,000 life cycles, and temperature minus 30 to 52 degrees centigrade, and cost, which Kaustuban has already told, $100 per kilowatt hour, and expected to meet the safety performance. Considering our country geographical environment, weather conditions, it is extreme. If you go to the north, it is extreme. If you go to the south, again, it is extreme. And in the mid, it is extreme. And coming to the chemistry of the battery, it becomes very difficult to maintain. Now, when you're talking about the other countries who have voluntarily gone, or there is a policies which are legal statutory compliance which they need to go, regulatory compliance which they have, like China, it is actually regulation. And for our country, it is actually voluntary. It's not necessary that I need to buy EV vehicle. So there is no regulatory compliance that I should go for EV vehicle. Now, if you see the growth of EV in China, from where they were in 2013 and where they have gone, this is status of 2019, what I'm sharing, which I got from the net. So let us accept the fact that China has grown to such an extent, imbibing the policies what they have been told to follow. So let us, I should not be saying that, but in fact, India has been really not to that extent to develop the technology what we were now, where we are now. And now coming to the Indian scenario in 2000 electric market, where hope you can see the graph, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Norway is almost having 55% of market share, and whereas India is still not even able to see, but still China is almost up to only 5%. But we are still long way to go as far as EV is concerned, and various issues that have already been spoken, like swapping of battery and recharging, which Kaustuban has already told. If you need to have a quick charging station, a quick charger, minimum 20 to 30 minutes of waiting time. And I am skeptical about how people will take up this, and it will be long run. Now coming to the geographical and weather conditions, what I have spoken. So this is the major thing that we need to look into the chemistry of the battery. Now, which Amit Goel has already told that earlier battery what they were making, Tata were making, it was only 150 kilometers. Now it has gone up to 300. So there is a change in the chemistry what they have imbibed. Now if you have to make the change in the chemistry of the battery, let us accept today a customer buying a battery today, and he has bought a vehicle which has a chemistry as of today, and it is having a kilometer range of 200. And within 2-3 years, again a new battery comes in which is having a 400 kilometers. Naturally, the customer would like to change over. So will the same battery can be put in this? So there comes the chemistry of battery management system. So this battery management system which we need to look into is a highly electronics. Like the earlier speaker, Mr. Sanjay Gupta had spoken about the semiconductors. So how we can have the control on quality of the semiconductors, the technology development, and these are all the things which is I foresee a major changes need to be done. So according to me, what I feel is the 1 minute. Let me stop this. Hello.
Yes, Sridharji. You
Yeah,
are
yeah,
audible.
yeah. Okay. Now coming to the new scenario that we have, it's a development of technology. So that it's a big challenge, people development, and the technology that will keep on changing. Let us accept there are more than 13,000 ITIs in the country. And when it comes to the dealership, the people should be more made tech savvy so that they can do the repairing or whatever it is to handle the customer concerns. So today that is a major lacuna because we are moving towards drive-by-wire technology. Today more of the mechanism is controlled by electronics. The instrument panel today what we have is totally digitized. The GPS system which is having controls. So people development is the big challenge what I foresee. So this is what from is my side, and I want other teams who can support in sharing the knowledge and in the colleges as well as the ITIs. Then only I think we will be able to take up this, and customers will have confidence. There is yes, I get a good service or a good upkeep of my vehicle.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Actually, Mr. B. Sridhar also stressed the need of skilling. That is the opportunity that is coming up, upskilling and fresh skilling in automobile segment, automobile EV segment. So now I'm coming to our last panelist. He is Mr. Mandeep Kumar. He is working with Energy Efficiency Service Limited, EESL. Everybody must be knowing those B star rating and all that. So it is through EESL. So he is looking after preparation of technical specification for EV charger, preparation of DPR, inspection cum testing, installation and commissioning of EV chargers, techno commercial agreements, standardization, innovation, and value addition. He is also keen for the development of new technology offerings aligned with the tech strategy to ensure technology relevance in the organization. Before joining EESL, Mandeep was working with Tata, BHEL, and DRDO. So I invite Mr. Mandeep to take over.
Very good afternoon, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, audible.
First of all, thanks to Electronic Sector Skill Council for giving me an opportunity to express my views on EV ecosystem. In EV ecosystem, I would like to classify this into broad three categories as EV storage system and EVs and EV chargers. In EV ecosystem, the main trends from EV point of views are intercity vehicles and intracity vehicles. Intercity vehicles mainly which are covering the range of 100 to 200 kilometers, that is Tata Tigor or Mahindra Iveco, and intracity vehicles from 250 kilometer to 400 kilometers, that is, for example, Hyundai Kona and Tata Nexon, etc. From battery point of view, now these days trends are going on for demanding higher range with reduction in charging time and with higher energy density and higher C rate, which already previous speakers have already mentioned and explained very well. Based on that, we have come up with a charging terminology of slow charging, quick charging, fast charging, and ultra fast charging based on the C rating of the batteries. That is 10 C2, C or C by 3. Now, because I'm focusing on EV charging system, so I would like to classify. I would like to first. I would like to express my views on types of EV chargers and the standards involved in this. EV charging system consists of EV chargers are mainly conductive and inductive chargers, Inductive chargers are wireless chargers, which we are not going to cover in this session. And conductive chargers are basically off-board and on-board chargers. And off-board chargers that we are classifying as AC chargers and DC chargers, which are further classified into 4 modes: mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4, based on the communication between the vehicle and charging system. And recapping about the global standards, we have US and Europe that are using CCS combo type 1 and type 2, and both are using PLC as a communication. And focusing on China and Japan, they are using, China is using GBT and Japan is using CHAdeMO as a standard, but both are using CAN as a communication protocol. Not talking about different parts of chargers. Charger mainly consists of MCCB, RCBOs, contactors, surge protection device, energy meters, shunt, DC fuse, modem, plugs. Plugs can be of CCS type, GBT, or CHAdeMO type, and auxiliary power supply, and lead acid batteries, insulation controllers, housekeeping controllers, and pilot controllers, and control cards, and sometimes based on the needs, smoke detectors are also installed in the chargers from safety point of view. Now I'm focusing on the charger testing and inspection, charger inspection and testings. As we see that now these days number of vendors are increasing day by day, but at the same time we need to focus on the quality of the chargers so that we can save our time and money both. So different tests for effective acceptance test for EV chargers are visual inspection test, charger wake-up test. Third is OCPP 1.6 communication test, voltage and current measurement test, which includes the tolerance and ripple test, cooling fan test, emergency stop test, and emergency stop test, etc. So in terms of, let me stop my video because I think there's I have low bandwidth. So it will be, I'm very thankful to you. I will like to stop my video. Emergency stop test and internal battery backup test. In performance test, the importance are efficiency test, power factor determination, voltage and current harmonic distortion, how much distortion of voltage or current due to harmonics in signal, standby power test, in on and off conditions of the fan at different voltage levels. And ideal power consumption is important because we are selling because one person is selling the electricity with service charges involved in it. If it is too high, it will affect the business model. I would like to, last but not the least, vehicle test is also one of the important tests, because while in inspection and testing, one should lodge and dislodge the gun and check whether charger is tripping or it is overheating. So these are the communication test is also important because one can check the number of packets and communication between the charger and the vehicle is going on with JSON language. So with this, I would like to stand up my
Thank you, Mr. Mandeep. We are also running short of time. So
yes, sir.
Now I am moving to question session. So there is a need to ask our esteemed panelists few questions, which will provide deeper insight into the theme of the webinar. So I'll start with Mr. Sanjay. When we talk about EVs, what role the technology plays in making EVs successful, and where do you think India stands from the technology perspective? Also, what other technology opportunity exists, and how successfully these technologies can address the range and anxiety issue? Range and anxiety is one of the terms in EV.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think, as I was saying earlier, the heart of the system for addressing these two top concerns, which everyone spoke about, range anxiety, and I will also add, the cost of ownership, which goes along. That if I invest so much, which typically right now most of the EVs are like either at a ballpark, a little bit costly, or at a similar numbers. So it is not offering a big discount or a pull factor to most of the consumers. As I understand in the market. And also another aspect is in a chicken and egg situation. If you get some features in a typical IC based cars, you do not get those features with all the the specs, EV right now, because even manufacturers are testing the waters so that they don't overinvest and their inventories are lying. So I would say that like any other infrastructure, so I will try to break the problem into two pieces. One, like any other infrastructure piece, whether it is a water to our homes, electricity to our homes, or a communication. I personally believe EV is not just a personal necessity. It is also a social necessity. As we talked about the pollution challenge that we have in most of the country and in the world in general, how we can address it at a country level. And to that, if the cost or anxiety are not creating enough pull factor, there could be a push factor from the government. And that's where I think we are all in the same, the same stake, where whether by giving some attractive subsidies, whether by giving some enablement to all the technology companies and all the OEMs and tier ones, so that they feel it is really nice to go for this, because it will give them the business value proposition as well as the societal angle that is there. So that is a high level pitch that I would expect government to do. Now, having said that, no major mission can be accomplished without great collaboration, and that's where we come into picture as industry partners. And technology, to your question, the heart will be, it is important to understand what exactly we are trying to do in EV. The total number of moving parts in a typical IC engine runs into thousands, and that results in obviously wear and tear, and the maintenance cost and a long recurring cost that we all incur in our automotive. I don't know, not many people know that in an EV based powertrain, the moving components can be substantially reduced from 1,000 to say few tens, or maybe in a single digit, and that offers a big deal in terms of the maintenance and the recurring costs that it can happen. We need to sell this proposition more so that people can understand that, and definitely it leads to the anxiety of cost of ownership part.
Right.
The second part is with the battery technology as advancement that we talked about, and not just battery, we are talking about lithium ion for sure is the current hot, but there are alternate technologies that are being explored, whether it is a hydrogen based technology. We're also talking about this plug-in hybrid is not going to leave us soon. Before we go to full electric, and then there's alternate ways. A lot of R&D research is happening to somehow beat. If you just Google, you will find 10 claims of some of the better cooler technologies which are going to be the future. So lot of action is happening in this whole battery space. So I believe time will take care of the anxiety on the battery. That I am stranded in the middle of the road, or for the cost perspective.
Thank you.
It is also one last point I would like to make is, the whole EV segment is going to offer big electronics, jump. The battery management system that we keep talking about, why exactly it is required. We need to go deeper into that. That the way battery gives the optimal performance. A typical lithium-ion battery has like thousands of small cells which are put in series and in parallel. And if you go into the basic chemistry, if those cells are uniformly balanced in terms of their voltage levels, because each cell is a component at the end of the day, and if they're not balanced, it determines the battery life and also the total energy that you can store. So balancing each cell out of these thousands of cells in a typical lithium-ion battery is actually a very minute task, because you will measure to micro, millivolt and millivolt to each cell, and how they are balanced, and they are balanced without getting into under or over voltage scenario, and ensured everything is really safe and secure using automotive standards, require a lot of intelligence. And that's where I was talking about sense, think, connect, and act. So it's an exciting battery management systems field itself, and there will be several companies that will be born out of just one electronic component I talked about. And then we have the charging as a complete independent infrastructure, which we can talk about superchargers, which can charge in 30 minutes to reasonable charges in a country like India, where in a parking area, you go to office or you go to school, and then 5-6 hours your car is ready with the AC charger. You don't need necessarily 1 crore plus DC chargers. And then the whole communication, if you go to EV, how electronically you can have your billing done using latest Wi-Fi technologies, which are linked to your ID in a secure way. So that all you need to do is charge and go home. Your money will be deducted automatically using your ID, using your vehicle ID, and everything is secure and safe. So there are three dimensions, car electronics,
Sir,
communication.
we would love to listen to you because you throw so much substance that but then here we are short of time, so I would go to my next question. As you know, technology opportunity is also into batteries for EV, and battery chemistry is going to play a very important role with respect to range and anxiety, which Mr. Sanjay already talked about. So kindly let us know your view, Mr. Kostaban, because your slide actually covered this aspect.
Yeah, so let me just rephrase your question. Is the impact of battery chemistry on range? Is that the question?
Impact of battery chemistry and the technology opportunity that it involves. That is my question.
Okay. So the logic is like this. So in a vehicle, you have a limited space for packaging of the battery. Right. So let's say a length into it, the horizontal, like how I showed a photograph. In that horizontal space, you have to package the battery. If you have a high energy density, which not only is kilowatt hour per kg, there is also a volumetric energy density, kilowatt hour per liter. Then in that packaging volume, you can get much more kilowatt hour. So if you have a chemistry A, you may be able to package 30 kilowatt hour battery. But if I increase the energy density in the same space, you can get, let's say, 50 kilowatt hour. It is like filling a petrol tank. So with 50 kilowatt hour, other things being constant, you can go for a much more kilometers. That's the reason why people are working on the energy density, and that depends upon the chemistry, because the energy density is limited by the lithium ions moving from cathode to anode, intercalating inside the anode, getting released and moving to the other side. So that chemistry means cathode material, anode material, electrolyte material, separator material. These are the things which determine the energy density of the cell level.
Yeah, right. So now my next question will be with Mr. Amit Goel. You know, the future of personal mobility is bright in India. And we all know what Tata Motor actually is doing in the EV segment. So especially also in post-COVID scenario, EVs only constitute a minuscule percentage of total number of vehicles sold in India, as Mr. Sridhar actually did show. So as per recent report also from Bloomberg, only 1.5 lakh electric two-wheelers were sold in India last year versus a projected sales of 21 lakh ICE two-wheelers. So what is preventing the widespread adoption of EVs in India? Can you throw a light on it?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Devrajji, for the questions. The same thing I have covered in my initial conversation also, that right now also presently in India, we are seeing that there are some roadblocks in adoption of the EV vehicles up to a large extent. And the major roadblocks is like range anxiety is the first one, I will say, and which is the major roadblock in achieving that kind of target. Then high upfront price of the product. Yeah. Since there is a near about after subsidy also, there will be a nearly 40 to 50% price hike will be there, effective price hike will be there to have a same vehicle or same kind of vehicle which we are using in IC vehicle. So that is another hurdle in this achievement. Right. Third one is the charging infrastructure. Right now, okay, range may be the less. I can go around the city or I can move from one city to other city. But in case there will be the charging infrastructure availability across the city, between the intercity on highway, then only I can get away from that anxiety. So right now there is a chicken and egg story, like Mr. Sanjay also said, this is same kind of story that nowadays total volume of the EV vehicle is not up to the marks, and charging infrastructure is not sufficient to support those kind of volume. So in that way, that is the another hurdle we are facing. And one thing is that we have right now limited product in EV. Okay, like from Tata Motor side also, we have only 2 products. Similarly, in two-wheeler also, we have limited product. And as on date, customer preferences towards the specific body style or features, which they are not getting right now with the EV product. So that is something on style point of side, or I will say the choice of the customer. Okay, so that is the another part. And overall, I will say that although our company and other companies are working in different aspects like total cost of ownership, if we can make them aware about the total cost of ownership, maybe there are chances that they can divert it from IC vehicle to electric vehicle. That need to be make them aware about this specific aspect of usage and the total cost of ownership. We have to educate to the people to adopt this technology. So we are doing, and even government is doing those kind of taking those kind of initiative to make spread out the awareness and to enhance the I will say the charging infrastructure. And even in many states they have given till now, in you will see in FAME 2 basically was for the specifically for the commercial vehicle side, or we can say the commercial registration. There was the subsidy, but now many state government have come forward. They have draft those policies and implement those policies where they are incentivize the private customer or personal segment customers on purchasing of EV vehicle in terms of registration, no road tax kind of thing. Then no registration charge. If registration charge will be there, it will be very minimum.
Thank you, Amit ji.
We are hoping that next coming 1 or 2 years, we can see a huge jump in this segment.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Mr. Amit have put forward a very optimistic view, and we also resonate with the view that definitely things will pick up maybe this year or coming years. So, my next question will be from Mr. Sridhar. Internationally, many countries have successfully convinced consumer to adopt EVs in a wider way. We have seen Norway's case, and we have seen many other countries' case. So China has around 4.6 million EVs being used as passenger cars and around 500,000 electric buses. US also has 1.75 million EV cars, and Europe has around 3 million. So are there international best practices that India should adopt, and India is right now not adopting, as you see, for promoting the use of EVs?
Coming to, actually, again, I'm coming to the same topic of people development. When you're talking about international best practices, if you see across Western countries, including China as well, there are certain QP norms which are already specified. If I have to put a certain people on a certain job, he has to pass a certain class of certificate. Then only he has to be put in job. So there is a confidence that builds up in the customer. So when our Honorable Prime Minister already told we should produce a quality jobs, quality material, quality goods. So when it comes to, let us accept the fact that today our road conditions are not good. So we should maintain a particular standards for everything. Now coming to the standards of people, there should be the international standard. We have a certain test that is conducted, and that certificate is valid. And then coming to the appointment at a company level or OEM level, all the candidates that are coming inside should have this particular QP level certified by like ESSI or ASDC or NSDC for that skill. Then only these are the things that norms are already followed outside, and we are still not have imbibed that. although we have a lot of QPs well put, and I'm sorry to say that corporates are yet to know how many QPs are there and what QP says about it.
Right.
So that standard has to come in while recruiting the people. At the same time, dealership people should have this QP norms unless and until you are not supposed to. A minimum pay scale has to be put. Then only the employment also will increase. Now dealers are trying to reduce their price at the same time putting Tom, Dick and Harry on a job. So that should not be done, which is there in abroad.
Right.
We are yet to get into this. That is what my humble feeling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my next question is with Mr. Mandeep. Whilst the number of charging stations is increasing in India, albeit at a slow pace, other options like swappable batteries, for example, Indian Oil and Sun Mobility partnership, the way forward to increase adoption of EVs in India. What do you think about it?
Definitely, there will be a mix of battery swapping and charging station. There will be mix of charging station.
Can you be little louder, because we are hearing very low sound?
Okay, sir. Definitely there will be mix of electric chargers and battery swapping stations. So there will be a different scenario. There will be a broader scenario where all these, because earlier we are assuming this 2 years back, we are thinking this as a chicken and egg theory. Now out of that, we have market has decided the charging guns as a GB by T and CCS as the main guns which they have decided. So market is I think is a strong deciding factor behind this, based on their priority, based on their parameters. Their market is I think is the final deciding factor.
Okay, thank you. So there are questions from question answer panel here. So I would take at least 2-3 relevant questions out of that. Mr. Uttam Kumar Saxena is writing that as ICE engines has big service network, in case of e-vehicle, service network will be actually very low in numbers, as maintenance requirement will be very low. So will it actually reduce jobs in EV segment? What do you think? Anybody can take this particular question.
Yeah, I think I will take that that question. So I don't think the jobs will reduce. I think the running cost will reduce, but the servicing of the vehicle will still be required. Right. So servicing is not only engine oil and oil filter, right? It's much more than that. So all those will continue, except that the consumables may reduce. For example, even in passenger cars, EV, there is a HVAC and there is a cooling system for the battery. So that means there is a heat exchanger.
Right.
So slowly the cooling fluids will be there. So the servicing will still be required.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Mr. Amol Sutar has asked which converter technologies are used and better for FV charging. Mr. Mandeep, can you throw a light on it?
Sir, can you please repeat the question?
Which converter technologies are used and better for FV charging? It must be EV charging. He has written FV charging.
Which converter technology?
Yeah.
Sir, actually, I'm not getting specifically what he want to ask. If it is better, he can ask me offline. If because in this short period of time, I will not be able to explain in detail.
Right. Anybody else would like to take this question?
Yeah, I think I can. In case nobody wants to answer, I can add 2 lines.
Yeah.
I think if his question is converter for charging technology. If DC charger, we need to convert it into DC because the battery is a DC battery.
Right.
So that is definitely there. And there is no doubt about that. And if it's a fast charger, which is a DC charger, then of course it has to be stepped down or suitably to the battery's voltage. So battery voltage, if it is 300 volts and the charger is able to provide that, then there has to be both a converter and a modulator to get the uniform waveform into the battery. So yes, there's a lot of work going on the converter technology, both for AC charging and for DC charging.
And I will also like to mention, just to add to Mr. Asuban, the way India is moving forward and the way our demographic profile is providing very costly super DC chargers for the whole masses. And, someone was quoting a number, we need, let's say, X million number of chargers in next, Y years. So the capital investment for having the DC chargers of very high cost may not be a viable solution in India, which could be a possibility in West or Europe or US. So based on my initial discussions with the, a lot of key people in DST and government who are trying to build the strategy for especially LEV segment, two-wheeler segment, three-wheeler segment, the most preferred solution that they are exploring right now for that entry-level segment is AC charging, so that it's a very low-cost solution. And ideally, you should be able to plug and play into any government building or a parking lot by just playing, just plug and play. And of course, that would mean you need a onboard charger for that, or you have an additional device or a low-cost device which can convert your AC into DC and still do some kind of a DC-DC charge. But this is a very evolving field, as rightly said, and a lot of opportunities for convergence as well in terms of standards. And I'm sure next couple of years will be key for that.
Last relevant question was with respect to the QPs. QPs are proportional to the job roles we call, that is qualification pack. That is minimum criteria for performing in a job. So there are a set of skill sets which are called NOSes. So group of these NOSes or group of skill set becomes the qualification pack for certain job role. So these qualification packs can be asked from us simply by visiting our website or looking at our website. So this can be taken afterwards. Now with this, I end this panel discussion and I move to next section. I hand over this to Mr. Varun for vote of thanks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devraj.
Thank you, sir. Thank to all of the audience for this sincere time and effort.
So what else you want to tell about?
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Varun.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, sir. And it's really a great webinar we had today. A lot of discussion we did, and a lot of technological ways of delivering the things. And EV, as we all know, is one of the not we can say the upcoming, but now the future is there, and already companies are there. They have started working, and lot of innovation has already happened, and lot of things are already happening. So I thank to all of you, and we are very glad to share with you this particular webinar had the utmost reach, and it has gone to various extent. And thanks to all the panelists, our keynote speaker, and to all the members. And special thanks to some of our training partners who have taken time out, and today they have dedicatedly, organized this webinar to outreach to all our various training centers which are present in Pan India. I'll just take a minute, just show it to you, and want to thank to all our partners. Just give me a sec. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible to you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just as some of the glimpse that we got today, and these are some of our associate partners where they have planned it to outsource this webinar so that it can reach to the mass audience, and they can take the advantage of this webinar today. So special thanks to all these training partners and their centers, all the students. I hope you were able to get a lot of information from the web discussion that we had today. And actually this is the purpose of this webinar, where we want to make this technology more easy, more comfortable to you, and so you people can understand and can actually deliver what exactly is being expected by you, and you can align yourself with the industrial demand. So thanks once again, and by this we take a leave, and with on the note that next month again we would be having more webinars like this on the again futuristic and upcoming technologies, so that you people are again get the first hand information, and we are able to serve you what is being expected. I have even jotted down some of the requests from some of our industry members where they want to get associated with us. So we'll be connecting with you all people. I'm sorry if we are not able to take some of the questions from the audience as well, but making sure whatever the inputs that we have received from all of you, we're gonna share our feedback to you all as well. So thanks once again, and have a great day here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Varun sir. Thanks to Devraj sir, and thanks to my dear colleagues and audience.